just as a quick thing, okay? I don't know where this talking point came from. Again, I literally think that this sounds so. I feel bad faith saying this, but I literally think that Republicans don't want to say that we're a democracy because democracy sounds like Democrat and republic sounds like Republican. I think that's actually it. I can't believe that this is real, that this is where I live now, that in this time in history, that this is the thought. But I think that Republicans hear republic, and then they hear Democrat and democracy, and they're like, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And it's wild, okay? Democracy can mean a whole bunch of different things, okay? You can have, there are representative democracies. You can vote by referendum on things. Brexit was a referendum. You could vote for representatives, right? I think when you have a body of people, even republic, I think can mean lots of things, right? So some people were telling me before that, well, republic and monarchy are exclusive. And they're usually a dichotomy to one another. You have a republic, so a body of people that represent the people. I don't know if the republic always even has to be voted on. You have a republic, and then you have a monarchy, right? But like England, the United Kingdom, that was a parliamentary system, okay, which I believe counts as a republic, with a monarchy, with a king. All this to say, I'm just saying that there are broad understandings of all of these things, right? You have democracy can mean a whole bunch of different things, and a republic can mean a whole bunch of different things within a spectrum. But to say that, like, well, we can't be a democracy, we're a republic, what? Where do our representatives come from? We vote for them. That's democratic. I don't know why I'm even explaining this. I don't know why the fuck I'm pretending that no one, I don't think anybody legitimately doesn't understand this. Okay. Okay. He believes that America's not a democracy, but he found the nuance to engage with it hypothetically, but not the nuance to threat level. Yeah, it's okay. It's, oh wait. I hope that you understand though, at least. Sean here is not misinformed, and he's not stupid, and it's not like he just has a bad understanding of what's going on. This is intentionally and maliciously lying, okay? That's what he's doing, all right? Can you explain the Hayes thing? No, I had a couple people emailed me about it last night. I haven't dug into it. I didn't know we were going to go that far back into history. But apparently, in the time of this election, there were parts of the South, I think, that were still literally being occupied after the Civil War. And there was contention over, like, the outcome of the election and everything, and how electors should vote and all that. And in this, there were, like, disagreements over, like, which electors are sad, and some went that were probably illegitimate. And as a result of all this, afterwards, they passed the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, right? Which is what Trump tried to circumvent. I wish I would have known that ECA factoid. Factoid technically started off as a word that meant a fake fact, but now it just means a small fact. But yeah, but that it had nothing to do with. Oh, there's even, we read this. Was this in a Federalist paper, or was this in a Supreme Court opinion? I remember that. Oh, it was in Gorsuch's writing, who's a phenomenal writer. Good for you, Gorsuch. I think it was when Gorsuch was writing on the opinion about what was it? It wasn't the Colorado case. I don't think it was a criminal immunity case. Did we read another one? I don't remember which one it was. Gorsuch was writing about the concept of stare decisis, which means that typically the court respects past court decisions. Okay, and it was Chevron. That's right. And as he went into the different bullet points about stare decisis, one of the things that he talks about is there are reasons why we look back at the collective wisdom of judges, and when we rely on that collective wisdom, that built-up knowledge, that wisdom over time. And it's funny because one of the points that he brings up about going back and looking to see if judges have ruled on anything is, are there lots of decisions? Were they made by people under a similar system of law? I don't remember about it. One of the points that he brought up, though, was like, were these decisions made in ordinary time? That was an important part, right? You wouldn't say, for instance, does the government have the right to beat the shit out of me for no reason and go, yeah, look, in this time period, they did it. And like the time period you're bringing up is like the literal apocalyptic war of hell. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Are we going to go to these 2 years and we're going to cite this as behavior that should be, seen as like like good judgments in ordinary time? Clearly not, right? These were exceptional circumstances. Fuck. Okay. Let me get a Red Bull. Fuck. I'm so triggered. Okay. I came to a realization recently that the dichotomy between the immunity ruling that prevents Trump's communications with officers from being reviewed and the fact that Republicans will accept nothing but a literal confession as evidence of Trump committing a crime. Yeah, it's that ruling is horrible. I really wish I could argue with an educated legal person who could tell me why I'm wrong. I don't just think it was a decision that I disagree with. Like, I just disagree that, like, I would say I disagree with the Chevron decision, but I feel like the Chevron decision, well, I disagree with Roberts writing on that. I just think Roberts is retarded. Gorsuch seems smart, and Barrett seems smart. But, like, overall, because of Gorsuch's add-on to the Chevron case, I would say Chevron decided fairly. But I could see reasonable minds disagreeing on Chevron. That's what I should say. I can see reasonable minds having different agreements or disagreements on the Chevron case. But the immunity case, the Roberts writing on that just seemed Finkelsteinian. It just seemed horrible and delusional and crazy. And the constant reliance to Fitzgerald about civil cases is just unbelievable to me. And the bucketing of the conversations with the attorney general. Why would he bucket any of that? Why would he even proffer? Why would he say a single thing? Just remand all the behavior to the lower courts at least. At least send it all back to the lower courts to argue over the level of immunity. Don't already protect Trump when the lower courts didn't even begin to engage in that analysis, as he pointed out, for some of the presumptive immunity stuff. Oh, okay. Okay. We're good. Jesus. I just want a president to walk around and tell all of his cabinet members, I need you to go and rape a woman or else I'm going to fire you. I just want to see that happen. I just need to see it happen. The president should never be able to be, should never be questioned on that. Why do you think Gorsuch supported Roberts' opinion if you have a high opinion? I don't know. I hope it's just not political bias, but that might be my naivety. Maybe Supreme Court justices historically have been really politically biased. I'm not sure. The feeling that I have, and Pisco agreed with me for whatever that's worth, is that we have like a 5-4 court right now that's 6-3 for some reason. Like, okay, hold on. Careful. I'm about to say a bunch of shit that I haven't read enough cases or have enough, I'll just say read enough cases to have a good opinion on. I feel like Amy is so much more reasonable than Roberts, but I've only read fully from top to bottom, I think like maybe 4 or 5 cases, I think, from this court. So maybe there are more, maybe I would disagree. Amy seems to be way more the center of the court than fucking Roberts, who maybe it's not so much political leaning. Maybe Roberts is just retarded. Maybe he's just a dumb fuck. I don't know. Maybe she's more radical on other things I haven't seen yet. Maybe we should go back and read Dobbs. God, fuck, we just read Supreme Court decisions all day. We should just do that. We shouldn't. No, that's okay. I feel like on the immunity thing, I feel like if there was one more liberal, I feel like Amy would have dissented. She must have, because her concurrence in part was reasonable-ish. Reasonable-ish. Roberts was the center when you had Scalia, Alito, and Thomas. Okay, I don't know how far right Scalia was. I just know I really like watching him talk, and he seemed like a funny dude. But maybe I would hate him if I read through some of his decisions. Do you believe that if Trump wins the presidency but Democrats win the Senate, they should still accept his Supreme Court nominations? Yes, but I would condition it on passing legislation that mandates that the Senate is required to have a hearing on a Supreme Court nominee within 14 days or 4 weeks or 1 month or whatever. I would say, okay, we'll hear your Supreme Court justice, but we're now going to I think you would have to pass legislation. Is something about that unconstitutional? I don't think it would be. Saying that from now on, when the president of the United States appoints a key position, it should be any position. I don't know why that hasn't happened already. You mentioned people citing old cases. You cannot even use that in court. You always have to use the most up-to-date case law when arguing in court. So why would they think old cases matter? No. It's not about people citing old cases. It's about people citing things incorrectly. Bro, I will say, if you can read stuff, I think probably the most eye-opening shit to me in the world, and it's actually blackpilled me on so much. I shouldn't say that. No, I shouldn't say that, because there are good academics that do make good use of underlying material, is reading annotations and reading source material. And because the way that people cite this sometimes is crazy. It is crazy. Roberts, the reason I don't like his citation of the Fitzgerald case is because he basically looks at a case where the president of the United States, Nixon, he did some action or something that resulted in the firing of an FAA person. I don't know if it was an ATCT controller or what. The guy's like, well, fuck this. I'm going to sue the president. Fuck you. I lost my job. I'm suing you. And I think the court, I'd have to go back and see what the test was or exactly, but they were basically like, we can't just have people suing the fucking president all the time, okay? Because they're unhappy with an action that he did that like harmed them. We can't do this. This obviously isn't going to work. And I think that's a super fair rationalization, right? The president being civilly liable to be sued by anybody who might be harmed by an executive decision, yeah, that's stupid, right? But for Roberts to look at that and go, well, if the president can't be sued in a civil court, well, clearly he can't be taken to criminal court. And that's it? I'm like, what? Well, hold on. Don't you think that, like, we have a greater interest in having a president who's not like a murderer or a rapist in office than we do having a president that can be civilly liable for damages? Like, doesn't the public have a greater interest? Isn't that why these are criminal charges? Isn't that why we have, like, laws about crimes? Just him saying, like, well, in Fitzgerald, they said civil immunity, so why not criminal immunity? Yeah, you know? And then the fact that in the Fitzgerald case, they literally say, like, obviously crimes are different than civil shit. Oh, fuck me. I don't care. Okay, don't care. I don't care. I don't care. What am I even doing? Oh, I'm going to go put my teeth in, okay? My dentures. It's okay. Where is when does the Factorio DLC come out again? Do you think Israel's system of picking Supreme Court judges is better? The committee has other judges in it, some lawyers and some Knesset members of the coalition. The opposition need a majority of 7 out of 11. I would have to look into it. I'm not sure. There's so much more to understand about. There's so much more to understand about legal stuff. Like even our own system, like reading, I think I've only read on stream, 7 or 8 Federalist Papers. Even just reading those gave me so much insight and understanding into why the branches are structured like they are. And there's a whole plethora. It's such good writing too, and these are so good. We will read these. We will get to these. It might be some months before we do it, but we will read every single one of these on stream. I swear to God, all of these are so good. Every single one we've read so far is so good in terms of the construction of the United States government. So when you ask me, does somebody else have a better system? Maybe they do, but I would really want to understand why the arguments were made for this system before saying, well, we should do something completely different. You know, my God, these are written. They're so good. These are so good. All of these are so good. I highly recommend them. It's a little dry-ish. But when you've read like a little bit of it, eventually I think you get a feel for how they write everything. These are so good. The arguments Like, you understand that, like, our government is so not random. Like, the way that they designed all of the different branches and how things are supposed to be done, it makes so much sense. It's such a, yeah, what a great country. Our country is so fucking awesome, okay? We started with a baller revolution by a group of brave people, came to a new world, okay? No idea what's going to go on. We rebelled against a king, all right? We wrote up our own fucking... We had like a quick evolution from strong independent colonies to a weak confederation of states to a federal government. And then we expanded, we grew, we radically evolved our concept of society from white Anglo-Saxons to slaves becoming voting people to Italians and Irishmen and all these undesirables fleeing World War II and coming here and integrating them even without papers to women being able to vote, to like, we've changed so much, but we like kept the core thing. And then we let Jews take it all over. What the fuck happened? And then the Jews came. And now people, 6 million, really? 6 million? Not a single one more, not a single one less, really? What happened? Okay. Somebody said I need to watch this before my conversation tonight. The entities here. This is a human. It requires like some sort of conscious differentiation to create these concepts. These concepts don't exist. You can't see sex anywhere, right? You can't. There's no way to see sex in the same way you can't see a chair. Oh, this is gonna trigger me, isn't it? Am I gonna talk philosophy with this guy? Oh no. You've got like a collection or organization of matter, and you might be able to describe like its constituent elements, but you can't see that particular thing because that particular thing it's a human organization of the concept.
After watching that clip, some of you may be thinking to yourself,
oh my god, this is like, you know, sometimes people are so smart they're f***ing stupid.
Now, as much as I love watching Destiny flail around as he tries to explain this, the truth is he's onto something. We don't see objects, and Jordan Peterson is more aware of this than anyone.
Because like when you look out at the world, you just see, well, look, there's objects out there. And by the way, you don't see objects. When you look at the world, you just see it, and you think, well, seeing is easy because there the things are, and all you have to do is like, you know, turn your head and they appear. And that's just so wrong that it's almost impossible to overstate.
Now,
Very true. Wait, hold on. Where did that Peterson go? That was 2016 Peterson. I need to filter my YouTube, okay? And I have to finally move on from ever watching any house clips. No, I'm sorry. Fuck, I just read my chat. I'm so sorry. Not house clips. Game of Thrones clips. What was the point of this? The Valerian steel sword, and then he... This is the only time somebody beats a White Walker in combat. By the way, no, Sam doesn't fucking count, okay? It happens. And then, look, and the guy even sees it. Wait, where's the King White Walker, dude? Where is it? Where is it? Show him, show him! Ugh, they're not going to. But the White Walker even looks and he's like, oh shit. And when he's looking, he's like, wow. He's like, we're gonna have an epic final battle. I can tell because you are a Song of Ice and Fire. It's you, Jon Snow. You are the one. He kills one when they go to find a walker for the queen. Wait, does he? Does Jon Snow kill one? Wait. All White Walker deaths.
Go inside.
It's come for the baby.
Why does it even need this baby? How many babies do they fucking need?
Stay back!
Oh my god, fucking Sam.
You stay back!
This does not count. That does not count, by the way. Okay, this is when John kills this one. We know this, obviously. Look, see? He's like, oh, I'm gonna have to fight. He's like, oh, that's the series finale fight. It's gonna be me and that dude. He knew it. He knew it here. John knew it here. All the viewers knew it here. They all knew. They all knew that. Also, wait. If they were turning all these babies into White Walkers, did all the White Walkers even show up in the final fight? Or did they all go into the garden to jerk off and come on Bran? Why weren't they fighting anywhere? Why were they just using the fucking zombie dudes?
Yes, they literally did exactly what you just said.
Wait, they did show up and fight and I just don't remember? Or they all jerked off on Bran?
They didn't really show up in the fight. They just kind of showed up to, you're right, come on Bran. That's literally
what was the
they did.
point of turning all the babies into White Walkers then?
The show did not go into it. They were going to explain it in the prequel Blood Moon, which eventually got canceled because then HBO realized nobody really likes White Walkers anymore. So, yeah.
They canceled Jon Snow's show.
They also canceled that too. He recently came out about it and he said that they were trying really hard for over a year to come up with a good story, but they couldn't find anything good enough to really tell, so they just backed off out of it.
You make videos on Game of Thrones, right?
No, Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Lord of the Rings, okay. Because I think the only reason I know that is because it popped up on my stupid fucking YouTube scroller feed and somebody with a YouTube voice, but it wasn't your channel, it was somebody else, okay.
No, Destiny, I do Game of Thrones content.
Oh, fuck you. Wait, maybe it was. Wait, did you make a video on this?
Probably not.
Or
no.
YouTube short on? Okay, then somebody else said, fuck you. Okay,
Yeah,
I saw
it was
some
somebody
YouTube short on this where they were like, Jon Snow came out and he talked about his shit being canceled.
Yeah, no, it's that was not me.
Wait,
because
have we?
They never really explain it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, we've spoken multiple times about Game of Thrones specifically.
No.
So
have we spoken about this?
About what specifically?
Did you think that the Battle of the Bastards was a good episode?
I thought it was a very good battle, but was that whole battle? See, I forgot now too because season 6 was such a terrible season. I think the first half of that battle was Daenerys, right?
What? No, we're thinking of something way different. I'm talking about when Jon Snow and the Wildling army or whatever, and his people, the Night's Watch, try to fight against like Ramsay Bolton when they're going back to Winterfell, I think.
Yeah, that's the Battle of the Bastards. Yeah, I thought it was a good battle, but the White Walkers didn't show up there.
No, but I'm asking if you thought it was a good episode.
Oh yeah, no, the episode itself, because the first half I think is Daenerys fighting against the slavers, and that kind of sucked.
Sure,
but yes, that second.
I'm
half,
sorry. Hold on.
Battle of the Bastards was great.
Let me be more clear. Okay, fuck you. You said enough to say fuck you. Okay, my bad. Okay, I'm not speaking clearly. I didn't like that battle. Okay, because I felt like the themes and the evolutions and the directions of the characters really past season 4 all became nonsensical bullshit. Okay, so
Yes.
for example, if you look at the setup to that battle, okay, one assumption that I would make, and I understand there's a tons of different ways you can write a character, do stories, that's fine, right? So I don't have to have the only one, but Jon Snow, when he left Winterfell, okay, this was like a young boy who was like pure of heart and fucking was so, sad that his mom didn't like him, but he looked up to Ned, right? We agree, right? He's like probably like one of the most like pure of heart kind of boys in like the North, right? Do we kind of agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now he goes to the Night's Watch and he does all of his shit, and man, he learns. He falls in love with a crazy chick that tries to kill him, gets killed. He gets killed by his own fucking dudes. He leaves the Night's Watch. Okay, radically changed character. All right. I thought I would have half expected that when they tried to bait with is it Riddar? What was the stupid kid that nobody gives a fuck about?
Rickon?
Rickon, yeah. I thought that they would try to bait with Rickon. I thought Jon would have turned his back and he'd been like, listen, I know I'm being baited. I know that this is some bullshit. I'm not going to fall for Ramsay's tricks. And he would have died. It would have been sad, but it would have shown like, oh, Jon's grown and changed or whatever as a character. But he didn't. He ran forward. His whole army gets fucked. He learns nothing. He's like the Jon Snow in that battle is the exact same Jon Snow from episode 1, season 1 of Game of Thrones. And it feels like every other character around him has grown up or evolved in some way. Sansa ends up bailing out, who's changed dramatically. I hated that. I feel like thematically, I just feel like it was a horrible payoff. And the fact that Ramsay loses in such a contrived way, that a magical huge army shows up that he had no concept or no idea of showing up, and then
I don't know. I maybe because I'm a Littlefinger stan. I love Littlefinger. They pretty much set up that the Vale army is coming to help because Littlefinger needs Sansa and he needs the North. They pretty much set that up quite nicely. So I don't think it was that contrived. But
well,
I see what you're saying
why?
about
I
Jon.
mean, like in terms of contrived, I mean, like obviously you would have seen a massive fucking cavalry horseback army coming, right? Like that's not just gonna happen. Like usually in Game of Thrones, even in the early seasons, even if they didn't show the fights, they at least talk about like feints that we moved an army one way to go another way, and we did this because of that. Like they spoke about that. But here it was just like, yeah, we're just gonna go fuck this dude's shit up because he has no idea, and then boom.
No, I see your point. And what you were saying earlier about the Night King, everyone did expect Jon and the Night King to fight. And I read the making of the show, the book, the making of the Game of Thrones show. And if I remember correctly, their mentality here was they wanted to like somewhat subvert expectations by having Arya do it instead, which was also incredibly dumb. Even the actress herself did not like that. So when she was reading it at the table read, because everyone was expecting Jon to do it. And I think, in my opinion, I think it should have been Theon that should have killed the Night King, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, that would have been a way fucking edgier choice, but I don't think I would have liked it over Jon, but I would have respected that. Absolutely. What a culmination. Or even if they would have mutually, like Theon gets like the killing blow as the guy like, you know, stabs him or something, he dies at the same time or something. It would have been a really good culmination of his arc and everything for sure. But sorry, go ahead.
100%. And I'll tell you why. Because the whole the show kind of hinges on the prince that was promised prophecy. The prince that was promised, born amid salt and smoke, you know, is going to do all this crap. Theon kind of fits that criteria. He was born on the Iron Islands, amongst salt and smoke. He was technically the Prince of Winterfell. There's a whole episode title around it. It would have made more sense for him with his arc to kill the Night King, because the showrunners were kind of correct. They had to subvert expectations somehow, because Jon can't be the main character for every single thing.
Sure.
It has to do like the main final boss or things. Like you got to give some of the other characters.
Hold on. No. Okay. Hold on. I hate this. I hate this fucking expression. Okay. When you say subvert expectations, okay, subvert expectations doesn't mean, okay, that you jerk off and the cum goes back inside your balls. Okay. Subvert expectations means that there's tropes relating to like maybe fantasy or storytelling, and the audience might think due to certain tropes that an outcome might happen, and then holy shit, it doesn't. But that subversion doesn't happen because you have a wacky, random stuff happening. It happens because of intelligent writing. Like, for instance, a really good subversion of expectation, subversion of tropes, was Ned getting executed in season 1. Because Ned was a good guy who was doing the right thing, who was incredibly virtuous and noble, and he even was giving the queen time to escape. He did everything that a morally righteous, good character is supposed to do, and then he got killed? That's not supposed to happen in fantasy. That's a good subversion of trope, right? But it's not happening because of random, wacky stuff. It's intelligent writing.
No, I agree with you, but that's the phrase the showrunners use.
I know. I'm aware. Trust me. There's like a million free folk memes with them playing that. There's that quote. Do you know what the most legendary quote is? You know it. What is the most legendary quote from D&D?
She kind of forgot.
Yep. That was a good subversion too. Yeah.
What's funny is right now we just ended the season 2 House of the Dragon Game of Thrones prequel, and a couple of decisions the new showrunners have not sat well with people. And I've noticed people are asking for Dave and Dan to come back, and it's just I don't understand how the Game of Thrones fandom is kind of becoming like the Star Wars fandom, in the sense where 15 years ago everybody hated George Lucas, but now that the sequel trilogy movies suck, they want George Lucas to come back. And it's kind of the same thing with Dave and Dan. Dave and Dan fucked this up, and now they want Dave and Dan to come back.
Well, I think it depends on, because there's probably different groups of people working, right? Because like the story that I always give is I didn't want to watch Game of Thrones ever because one, I don't usually like knights and ponies and shit. I'm just not like a medieval guy, and I like science fiction more. And then two, because the way that everybody described it was so retarded. Like, oh, your favorite character died anytime. I was like, this sounds, who cares? This sounds like memey and stupid. And then I think I ended up binge watching it, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. But the first 4 seasons of the show are markedly different than the last 4 seasons. The first 4 seasons are like, in my opinion, it's a well-written world with so much consequence that everything is connected everywhere. Daenerys, even on the other end of the world, is causing screaming matches between the king and his hand, right? Everything is connected. Right. But in the last 4 seasons, things move away from intelligent writing to becoming very tropish, right? In the first season, you can like and dislike every single person for a different reason. The most noble fucking Ned Stark has a fucking bastard kid, right? And you can't not love Jaime, even though he's like a cocky kind of piece of shit. And everybody just has their pros and their cons. Like the Lannisters are cool, the Starks are cool, they get, but in the last 4 seasons of writing, everybody goes their own separate way, right? Arya has no influence on the rest of the world for how many fucking seasons? Jon Snow is north of the Wall. Bran is north of the Wall for how many fucking seasons? None of them have any impact on each other whatsoever. And it all becomes incredibly tropish. Your bad guys go from being people like, Tywin Lannister to people like Ramsay Bolton. By the way, he's a real bad dude. Not only does he rape people, he has women and their children eaten by dogs, okay? Just so you know, he's really bad. And he flays children. He's real bad, right? And even like Arya, who, has this, I'm going to kill people. Like her wanting to kill the Hound, it's a pretty, okay, what does the Hound say? I was told to kill a dude, the king, I'm not here to question the king. And, but then the later people that Arya kills in the later seasons is, who is that one? Meryn Trant or whatever? That guy.
Meryn Trant and Walder Frey.
Yeah, those are real bad dudes, just so you know. And by the way, Trant is so bad, he beats and fucks not just prostitutes, but child prostitutes, okay? Like, he's a real bad guy. It is like, holy shit. Everything is so tropish at the end. And then you got your plot armor, good characters, and it's just everything's so tropish and dumb. It's no surprise that by the end of Game of Thrones, you've brought in like the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars fans, people that just want to see tropish fantasy. That's not surprising at all.
I keep forgetting to ask you this. Who is your, throughout the entire series? Oh, by the way, just to end what you were saying.
The answer is Oberyn, by the way, to your question, but go ahead.
Oberyn Martell, of course, classic choice. The books ended at season 5. When Jon Snow is stabbed and left for dead, that's when the last book ends. We've been waiting for 13 years.
Sure.
George kept telling the showrunners and HBO themselves, like, this could go on for 10 seasons. Yeah, well, motherfucker, you got to put something out so they can, keep adapting. And I will give Dave and Dan this. They were amazing in the first few seasons. They adapted the shit out of it, and they fixed a lot of the problems with the books.
And a lot of the writing they did, a lot of the writing they did was original, right? A lot of the writing, I think, between Cersei and Robert, I don't think any of that was in the books, and that was some of the best.
Maester Luwin. Arya and Tywin was completely original. In the books, it's Arya and Roose Bolton, and they don't interact that much. But in the show, in season 2, Arya and Tywin, I think one of the best lines in the entire series of the franchise is when Tywin asks Arya about her father, what killed him, and she says loyalty. That's completely original.
All of that. And by the way, because now it's kind of cheating, because the real answer is every single scene with Tywin in it is good, okay? But every scene with Tywin and Arya was really good, yes.
Oberyn's your favorite character, really? You really like Pedro Pascal's Oberyn?
I just like the character. Because it's such a... I think maybe in real life too, I like people with like a variety of traits, people that do a lot of different things. So I like that Oberyn he's a stark challenge to like the more kind of like uppity noble life of Westeros, right? Like he drinks, he's promiscuous, bisexual, okay? He's like an Eastern king, all right? He's got all these crazy things, but he's like a really good fighter. He's fearless when it comes to taking on the mountain. He's there for revenge for his sister, raped and murdered and killed her children. And I just think he's a really fucking baller fuck character, yeah. And his death also, by the way, is satisfying. It makes sense, right? He should have won, but he was so preoccupied and so obsessed.
Overconfident.
Yeah. No, not even overconfident. It was the obsession. No, his confidence was absolutely appropriate. He won. He destroyed the mountain, right? It was absolutely appropriate confidence, but he was obsessed with getting vengeance for his sister that had blinded him, and then he ends up dying as a result of that, right? So even his death is makes sense, is satisfying as much as you want to see him win.
By the way, real quick, I have to compliment you on the latest Bridges episode. We guys talk about Ukraine. That was pretty good. I quite enjoyed
Oh, was that with
Do you have any?
John Spencer?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
pulled in.
just finished it. It was great. You have any more people like that in the lineup?
I don't know. I'm not sure which ones have aired and which ones haven't, but we're working. We're working on always getting people. Yeah.
And I was trying to go back to your one of the earlier episodes with Ryan Macbeth, but I can't seem to find it on the Bridges channel. What happened to that video?
I mean, it should be on there.
No, I can't see it on here. Because Ryan Macbeth recently put out, I don't know if you saw it yet, Lies of Project 2025. And yeah, I was just watching and I wanted to go back and rewatch the Ryan Macbeth one, but I can't see it here.
I wonder if I got hit by some weird copyright thing or something. I don't know. Huh. Oh, no, wait. Bridges podcast, episode 2 with Ryan Macbeth. Huh. Yeah, I don't know why you can't find it. Maybe you're just a fucking moron.
Probably. That's probably it. No, that's basically it, brother. Thank you very much, and for all you do regarding the Republican bullshit. Because I don't know how you handle it. I don't know how you handle people like Sean and Rob Noor. But no, thanks for everything you do, my man.
Yeah, have a good one, buddy. Be careful.
Take care, brother.
Okay, sorry. I'm not getting Game of Thrones yoinked.
Whether Destiny realizes it or not, this idea is so disgustingly important. It's the philosophical issue that lies at the root of, without exception, every single important disagreement between the left and the right. Let's start.
Oh, yeah, fuck. Okay, I am getting yoinked. I'm sorry. You brought up exactly the meme video that I was referencing. No, this is the last one, and then we're...
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet. The balance has grown distressingly even.
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
We need to find Euron Greyjoy's fleet and sink it.
Your Grace, he's already destroyed a good portion of our fleet.
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
What was the whole point of losing all these shit? This didn't even matter.
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
Okay, sorry.
With a very well-known and mainstream manifestation of this disagreement, the debate over gender ideology and the answer to the question, what is a woman?
The question of what is a woman is just a retard's way of trying to get a gotcha because they're either too intellectually lazy to explore, like trans topics, or they're genuinely too retarded to understand how sophisticated or complicated language is. Any singular word is truly going to be pretty difficult to define when you're talking about the difference between like universal categories of things versus like particular things themselves. Just definitionally, these are incredibly difficult things to pin down.
Did you catch it? Listen to that last part again.
Any singular word is truly going to be pretty difficult to define when you're talking about the difference between like universal categories of things versus like particular things themselves.
Universals versus particulars.
Wait, I thought this guy was a retard. I didn't even know. Okay, never mind. Oh, maybe this will be like a substantive video. Plato's forms.
If there's one thing you take away from this video, it is understanding this fundamental philosophical dichotomy, and more importantly, how it structures the ongoing civil war between the left, who can be described as philosophical nominalists, and the right, who can be described as philosophical realists.
So the way that Dugan presents it in the book is that we have a dispute, a medieval dispute among theologians and philosophers over the ontological status of universals. So if I say, for example, that here's a horse, there's a horse, okay, 3 horses. Now, only the particular horse exists, or does the category of horse also exist? Does the general category or the general grouping, the species or whatever the case is, the idea of the horse, does that also exist? So is a debate over the existence of universals. Are only particulars real, or are universals also real? And the idea here is that nominalism came down on the side that only particulars are real.
True.
That universals are a function not of what exists, but of what we say.
In the mind.
Nominalism suggests that universalism is a function just of the act of naming, in effect. That the only reality is the individual.
The nominalist philosophy, which is the philosophy that characterizes the left, claims that universal categories don't exist, only individuals in particulars. In other words, there is no objective.
No. No, that's completely wrong. Oh, no. Hold on one second. Oh, okay.
Objective reality to the
Sorry, fuck. I feel like the difference between the left and the right is not the difference of universals or particulars. Because, by the way, regardless of what a nominalist thinks or whatever philosophy nerds think, everybody believes in universals as being real things. Just as a quick thing, I'm going to give you a quick summary on a philosopher that I've never read about a topic that I've never formally studied. So take everything I say with mountains of salt, okay? I think there's an argument over whether or not, or there was an argument, or in philosophy there's different schools of thought on whether or not universal forms exist. So, for instance, when we talk about a chair, there are particular chairs. I'm sitting in a thing we call a chair. That's a chair. There are chairs everywhere, okay? But does the universal concept of a chair, if every chair was destroyed, would there be the concept of a chair somewhere in some mind-independent manner, right? Not reliant on a human conceptualizing it, but just is there like a universal form of chair? Is that a real thing? And some people, I say some people, I don't know. I think this originates. I think this is like Plato's theory of forms or something. But who cares? He's a loser. The idea of a universal or a particular. Everybody believes in both of these things. People think that categories are real. People don't really question whether or not they're mind dependent or not. Like nobody actually thinks about any of this shit. Leftists believe in universals just as much as conservatives do. The leftist just defines the universal category in a different way. They don't reject the universal category. And this is evidenced by the fact that for instance, if leftists didn't care about redefining universals rather than just eliminating them, they wouldn't care what pronouns you use. The reason why they care about the pronouns is because they still believe in the universal category. They just want to expand or change it, right?
Just of the act of naming, in effect, that the only reality is the individual.
The nominalist philosophy, which is the philosophy that characterizes the left, claims that universal categories don't exist, only individuals in particulars. In other words, there is no objective reality to the concept or category of woman. There are only individuals who nominally identify with the word woman.
The answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman? Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
This. I don't know who that guy is, but he's an idiot. And I don't know if he was a professor or what. We watched that film, and that professor that Walsh was talking to is nonsense. You can never ever say that a thing is what if you identify as it. That doesn't, no word or anything ever works like that. With the exception, maybe, of categories that are explicitly just things that we want them to be what we say they are. So like a name, for instance, right? And that's about all I can think of. But yeah, my name is whatever I say my name is, because that's what I want you to call me. But even that isn't saying what a name... Wait, hold on. Oh, fuck. No, that's not actually true. Am I correct in saying that Wittgenstein said that every single problem of philosophy was actually just a misunderstanding of language? Does he say that? Because I just realized, hold on, I'm committing an error. I'm saying that a name is whatever you say the name is, but that's not true. You're not saying that the name, the category, is whatever you say it is. You're saying my name, like in this category, this thing called a name, the thing that I want to be referred to is, and then you're doing a thing. You're not saying what a name is in the same way that you're saying what a woman is. It's not true. I committed that was a language error. I shouldn't say that anymore. Fuck, I just realized that. Because when somebody says a woman is whoever defines themselves as a woman, a name is whatever you call yourself, those aren't the same thing. You agree what a name is. A name is a thing that you call somebody. You're not saying that a name is whatever you want it to be, but a name is whatever you want it to be. But when you say a name is whatever you want it to be, you're talking about like the content or whatever of what a name is. You're not talking definitionally about what a name is. So even though you're still using the same, what kind of verb is? Is it a, I don't remember what they're called. I don't think they're adverbs. What kind of verb is that? Yeah, it's you're saying a different thing. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Fuck, my bad. We're going back to this. Okay.
The answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman? Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
So what is that?
As a woman.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
On the right, people who adopt a philosophical realist position would argue that there is an objective definition of woman and would put forward something like adult human female. Now, as you'll see by the end of this video, both of these...
Adult human female is a stupid description for woman because female, you're still begging well, what is female, right? That's real. The fact that I think the easiest evidence of a person being a dipshit and not even considering the prompt is what is a woman? A female. Well, fuck me, my friend. My God. The synonym master has shown up. Thank God we've been saved by, yes, true. Woman and female, these are synonyms for one another. Thank you.
sides are only partially correct, and the better perspective is the enlightened centrist one that people like pre-Coma, pre-Daily Wire Jordan Peterson have adopted. Postmodernists like Judith Butler, Michel Foucault, or Philosophy Tube occupy the extreme nominalist position, while religious fundamentalists like Muhammad Hijab or friend of the channel Andrew Wilson occupy the extreme realist position. Destiny, at least in this clip, seems to plant his flag firmly in the nominalist camp.
Sex for mammals exists outside of human understanding, though. No, it doesn't. That's not true. Sex is a category of things. No, there might be underlying facts that underlying matter or whatever, where animals might have particular things and go about in particular ways and create babies and all of that. But the categories of sex, these categorical things. So like my position would be that there are categories of things, but these are all mind-dependent things. Like we as humans create categories of things that other creatures might not. It's hard for us to imagine because we're people, but other creatures might not distinguish between like a rock and a plant or a leaf and a branch. I don't fucking know. Or a dick or some balls, right? But we do as humans. We create different categories because there's purpose in that. It helps us. There's utility. It makes sense. I need to be able to distinguish between an apple and dirt. If I'm trying to feed somebody, I have to create different words and categories because they provide utility to me and us when we're navigating the world and communicating with each other. I just don't think that these things are, I think these things are mind dependent. They don't exist somewhere. They're not a feature of the universe that humans are discovering, the universal form of an apple. We're just noticing patterns and then giving names to said patterns, and yeah. These are ways that humans organize things on the planet. It's our way of like making sense of all. These universal categories don't exist outside of human understanding.
Like I said, there is some truth in this position, but if you take it to its logical conclusion, you end up making arguments like this.
But let's just use the example of water. Maybe we could agree that water is H2O. That was true even before we knew about chemistry. It was H2O. True. I'm sorry?
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah, all you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's agua. It's not aqua, right?
And we're referring to terms and definitions here.
No, I'm referring to water. The stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
The stuff that fills many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay.
Again, the philosophical nominalist.
There was a miscommunication contextually happening here, but Vosh was kind of working his way towards something. I just don't know if he knows what. The professor was correct, but Vosh was working in a different context, but he was also just,
on the left do have a point. Objective universal categories are hard to nail down, especially when it's very easy to identify exceptions. Philosophical realists will claim that the definition of woman is adult human female, but then they will struggle to stay consistent with this belief when dealing with edge cases.
Transgender woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time magazine.
Let's also put a picture of her by the mantle. Keep the kids away from the fire. Yes. Him. Shoot. Whatever. Z. I don't know. You can admonish me off the bat because I can't keep this straight.
Wait, but why can't he keep it straight? It should be incredibly obvious, right? Because he and she literally just mean chromosomes, right? You're never mixing those up, right? It should be really easy, no?
But these slip-ups aside, here's the inevitable problem that the left-wing nominalists face. If there are no objective universals, then our most basic categories that society depends on, like marriage or the nuclear family, are liable to be deconstructed into pure subjectivity.
Correct. But, well... Well, I imagine we'll probably talk about this. I think I talked about it in like 2 hours. The issue is that this is a big issue that a lot of people have. Just because something is socially constructed doesn't make it arbitrary or meaningless, right? Like football doesn't exist in the universe. It's not like a feature of reality, okay? But there are discrete, concrete rules about football. There are like, here are individual rules that we all agree on, and they have very particular, precise meanings. And you can even change these, right? There are different, number of downs between college football and professional football, right? There are differences that you can have, and you can change these theoretically at any point in time if you wanted to, right? Just because something is socially constructed, just because it's not like a feature of the universe, doesn't make it meaningless, doesn't make it not important, doesn't make it subject to arbitrary destruction at any point in time. If anything, you could argue that social constructs that arise out of human interaction are some of the most important things, arguably more important than matter, more important than the actual things in the universe, because we make decisions and we do, we decide things in our lives regarding these immaterial things sometimes, right? Like arguably the existence of God, if you're religious. Obviously, if I'm an atheist, I would say God doesn't exist, but God, even if you're religious, God is an immaterial thing. So yeah, the idea that people will say this, I'll say something like, oh, well, this is probably like a social construction. And I'll be like, oh, you think it's socially constructed, so it's not real, it's not important. It's like, well, hold on. Like Harry Potter isn't real. I really like Harry Potter. Excuse me, right? There's whatever.
When we start breaking down these basic...
Do you think an alien would not observe our species to have two genders the same way they would recognize even and odd numbers? I have no idea. I have no clue. They might. It might be that that having a binary gendered gametes would exist on every single planet. But I mean, I'm limited based on the life I understand. It's possible, I guess, life could exist in some other form that wouldn't even have gender distinctions, right? One interesting exploration of this concept is in the story Ender's Game. Basically, humans are at wars with these giant bug creatures, and they end up basically killing all the blood creatures. And in the course of this big war between humans and bugs, the bug queen creature realizes at some point during the war that, like, oh, holy fuck, we're like a hive mind, and killing, like, individual bugs to us is like cutting your hair. We could never have conceived that every single individual human has thoughts and feelings and emotions and conscious experiences. Like, we never thought that. We just killed you all because we thought there was like one hive mind on Earth. And obviously, we wouldn't kill the hive mind on Earth. That would be crazy, cruel, and terrible. But yeah, we never imagined that individual humans would have consciousness, right? And then with the buggers, yeah, we would never consider the opposite, that like all of these things are connected to one central hive mind, and just killing a random things like cutting your fingernails or cutting hair or something. So I don't know. It's hard to, when you say like, well, would an alien conceive of this? There are some things that I would imagine we would all share concepts around. So like basic mathematical identities and truths, I would hope, and things like the periodic table of elements, I think. But I mean, it's hard to say. Really easy, no?
But these slip-ups aside, here's the inevitable problem that the left-wing nominalists face. If there are no objective universals, then our most basic categories that society depends on, like marriage or the nuclear family, are liable to be deconstructed into pure subjectivity.
When we start breaking down these basic central institutions, like the institution of the family and marriage, that's where the harm comes from.
We are rattling to the core heteronormative family structures. What they have to lose is the belief in their supremacy, their immutability, their necessity, their universality, and that is a big loss for them. But they're going to have to grieve that loss, and that's what we're telling them: grieve that loss and enter into a better world with the rest of us.
And the more that people believe, the more that we build a society where it's believed that marriage is objectively meaningless, right? It's entirely subjective. It's just not making you feel.
And this is where conservatives are kind of starting to try to make a comeback, but they haven't figured it out yet. Is if you want to argue for your social construct over somebody else's, you have to put forth positive arguments for it. You can't just rely on the fact that, well, it's been this way, so it won't change. And that's part of the reason why liberals won so much of the culture war. Although it's arguable to say if it's swinging back or not. But like, if you're just going to say over and over again, like, well, hold on, marriage is this way because it's always been this way and it's supposed to be. And then someone else is like, well, doesn't marriage kind of suck because it locks you as a woman out of basically doing anything interesting in your life? And now you've got birth control and jobs and college and you could travel the world, do all these cool things. Like, women look at that and they're like, okay, well, that actually seems pretty based. What did you guys say again? And the conservatives like, well, marriage has always been this way and it can't change. Like, okay, well, it has changed, so something seems to be not adding up here in your guys' worldview. Yeah, you have to be able to put forth an argument to defend your particular social construction, your view of the world, which should be easy to do, especially for one that's lasted for so long. But a lot of people just kind of take it for granted, and liberals have done. Everybody does this. We do this in the United States right now with democracy. We've taken it for granted, so we can't defend it anymore.
Feel better. The more that we build a society like that, I think that's where the harm comes in, the worse it is.
Reasonable people can disagree about the definition of marriage, but only the most ideologically possessed left-wing postmodern philosophical nominalist would argue that dissolving the nuclear family would produce better outcomes for children and society more broadly. It's statements like these that drive most of the justified reactionary sentiment on the right. And speaking of right-wing reactionaries, Destiny seems fully aware of the opposition to his ostensibly nominalist beliefs.
These are literally socially created concepts by humans. Language doesn't exist and categories don't exist outside of humans. Well, unless you think that there's a God that exists that creates categories of things. But then that's a whole other religious epistemic argument or whatever.
Okay, so how do you determine that anything is morally right or wrong? I do it from divine command. You do it from preference.
No,
you
do it
from divine command. What does that mean? Explain that. So this means that I follow Christian ethics. I use transcendental categories inside philosophy to create justifications for the values which come from God's laws. That's what I do.
That's a lot of words to not say anything.
God, he's so stupid. God, Dave is so dumb. I don't understand how people look at. I do understand it, but like people, they say so many words that mean things, but then they don't mean anything that other people say. People will look at me and they're like, "Oh, Destiny's an idiot's idea of a smart person because he talks fast." I'm like, "What?" Dave is an idiot's idea of a smart person because he memorizes some facts, but he can't engage substantively on anything. I thought this P.F. Young guy was just like a memer and then kind of like dumb. That's what I do. I don't know why I thought that.
You do it from divine command. What does that mean? Explain that. So this means that I follow Christian ethics. I use transcendental. I do it from divine philosophy to create justifications.
Yes, these transcendental categories, right? Transcendental. I think transcendental meaning like ontologically, it's above or separate than just material or matter-based things, right? A transcendental category can hold a concept like a universal, and I don't have to be able to see it somewhere in the world because it's metaphysically different or separate from the matter that we see and observe. And if you're a religious person, then you're probably more prone to believe in like objective universal categories existing in some other place or stored in some other realm, some other immaterial place because you're religious, because God lives there, right? So why couldn't things like good or evil or other things, these categories that are separate from our material understanding of the world,
for the values which come from God's laws. That's a lot of words to not say anything.
So it sounds like there's some sort of biblical scholarship, that there are things like he believes in like the Ten Commandments, and that from these Ten Commandments and from your reading of Scripture and from the teachings of, I guess, whatever religious denomination he is a part of, that from there you can derive your moral oughts, whatever ethical principles that you ought to follow, that are essentially coming from God, and then they're. Ooh, I really don't know if I like this, or if you can do this. That good, because he's taking like. He's doing like the meta ethics are your universal, and then your particulars are like your applied ethics, when this is more of an is-ought distinction, but the is stored in some like transcendental arena. The is like in some immaterial place, and then the oughts are, whatever, we grant it. He drew a chart, so if he's going to do graphics, we'll give it to him. Expressed through, I guess, like scripture or priestly teachings or whatever else.
This is a decent summary of the philosophical bedrock underneath right-wing ideologies like Christian nationalism. Philosophical realism posits that universal categories exist and are divinely inspired. God created man and woman in his image, therefore man and women are fundamentally objective and divinely inspired categories. God commanded men and women to get married, thus marriage is a objective, divinely inspired category. The problem with philosophical realism is fairly obvious. Even if objective categories did exist and were defined in a foundational religious text like the Bible or the Quran, there is no way to interpret, or in theological terms, exegete these foundational religious texts without applying a human, i.e. subjective, level of interpretation.
That's really not the claim that religious fundamentalists make. The claim they make is worse than that, because they claim that the Quran, say, or the Bible for that matter, is the literal word of God. But more than that, they claim that their understanding of that word is correct, which means they conflate two things. Like, because you could imagine a situation where you had a book, and I'm not saying this is the case, it's a matter.
How old is this video? What happened? What happened to his brain? Is this an old video? This is a very good point, what he's about to say, that language is so complicated. When somebody says, the word of God is objectively true, I'm telling you something that is objectively true, there is a big distinction between you've snuck in a huge degree of subjectivity, and you've tried to pass it off as objectivity. You're saying that's the word of God, and the word of God is objectively true. But you're not saying that's the word of God and that's objectively true. You're saying my understanding of the word of God is objectively true, and I'm passing that on to you. That's a much different statement. It's a far different statement. I think that's what Peterson is, I think, about to talk about. These two things are very, very, very different. Not that writing in the word of God is objectively true, but my subjective interpretation of it inherits some kind of objective truthfulness from it, right? Because that's objectively true. I can inherit that objective truthness and then convey it to you, but that's not true. There's a huge degree of subjectivity and interpretation of everything. Necessarily, you're subjective. I think, right? Everything that passes through human experience is definitionally, I think, subjective, right?
Correct.
But
literal word of. They claim that the Quran, say, or
this is from 5 years ago. Oh, so he wasn't fully retarded by 2018, August 31st, 2018. Sorry, okay.
The Bible, for that matter, is the...
You didn't substantiate how conservatives are begging the question when they say a woman is an adult human female. Because woman and female are because woman and female are the words that we're trying to define, and using a word or a synonym of a word and definition for a word is oftentimes unsatisfying. When we're trying to say what is a woman, we're typically asking for some criteria or some things that substantiate, well, what is a woman, right? And if you just say, oh, female, well, you're restating it with another word. We're not really arriving at we're not saying anything meaningful there, right?
Literal word of God. But more than that, they claim that their understanding of that word is correct.
Adult, female, adult is the difference? No, it's not. No, it's not. And I refuse to believe that you actually think that. That was uttered in bad faith. You think when people are saying, what is a woman, the confusion they're having there is the age? You're wrong. You're lying, or you're just stupid. The confusion about a woman isn't how old she is. So saying adult human female, the adult part is pointless. Like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess what is a girl? Is that an adolescent human female? Also, the human is irrelevant. We don't have a problem distinguishing between human and non-human, right? So we're really talking about an adult female. We're not having a problem distinguishing age. That's not the question. The question is the ontological category of woman. What is the content of woman? What is that? What is within that, right? And to say, well, it's a female. Okay, well, what is a female? If you have content for female, then give that.
literal word of God. But more than that, they claim that their understanding of that word is correct, which means they conflate two things. Like, because you could imagine a situation where you had a book, and I'm not saying this is the case, it's an imaginative exercise, where you had a book that had all the answers, that was extraordinarily complicated. And so that when you read it, it wouldn't be obvious that you understood it.
Why is XX chromosome not a satisfactory definition? You haven't elaborated on that. It can be a definition. That could be one you can use. That's fine. But the problem is that if you're conservative, you just can't engage with the question. You're so mind rotted that you're incapable of even considering any conversation here because there's too much at stake. You would have to admit to yourself that you've lived your life as a meandering, clueless retard, okay, that's wandering the planet, lost, okay, to the world of any type of intellectual thought to even admit that you might have to reconsider this. But for anybody who is in good faith wondering, if you want to say that like, oh, a woman is an XX chromosome, right? Okay, now that's interesting that you would say that. However, let me draw an analogy, okay? We can go back to the professor that was arguing with Vosh. Well, if you say that a woman is an XX chromosome, what about when we go back 1,000 years and they had women? Women existed back then, right? But were there XX chromosomes back then? Did we have an understanding of chromosomes in the year 1000? In the year 1500? In 1000 BCE? In 5000 BCE? Like, no, we didn't know any of these things. But we still had women, we still had men. So it seems like there's something more going on in that. And in a day-to-day use, when we talk about women and men, it seems like we're talking about something more than just chromosomes, right? Seems like there's something more going on there. When you say, wow, that boy hits like a girl, are we saying, man, you are exhibiting X chromosomes right now? No, seems like there's more content to these words, right? We're implying, some different level of physical strength, some different level of athletic capability, some different, there are other things. There's more content to these words. But conservatives are petrified of even engaging with that conversation.
Conflate two things, because you could imagine a situation where you had a book, and I'm not saying this is the case, it's an imaginative exercise, where you had a book that had all the answers, that was extraordinarily complicated. And so that when you read it, it wouldn't be obvious that you understood it. Or perhaps it wouldn't be obvious that you didn't understand it either, but you're not going to be able to, you can't get an uninterpreted version of the book. And so the fundamentalist claim is far worse. It's that not only is there an absolute reality, truth embedded in the book, but that their particular take on that absolute reality is the absolute take on that book.
So if the right-wing realists can't pin down objective truth, and the left-wing nominalists don't believe in universal objective truth,
that's a good analogy to it. I guess another analogy you could use is the 42 answer, right? There's a book called A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I think there's some sentient alien species builds the best, smartest supercomputer in the world, and I think they ask it what's the meaning to life or something, and then the computer says 42, and everybody's like, wait, well, what the fuck? Well, hold on, wait, what is that? They either ask it for an interpretation, what does that mean? Or they might ask well, what's a better question or something? And then the computer's like, okay, well, I need another 50 million years to actually calculate that. And I was like, okay, well, fuck us, right? So in that case, the answer doesn't do anything for you because, so now it's up to your interpretation of the answer. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah.
On that book.
So if the right-wing realists can't pin down objective truth, and the left-wing nominalists don't believe in universal objective truth to begin with, who can we turn to for answers?
Unironically, I don't even know if he would stand by his answer because he's so unhinged now. Jordan Peterson actually gave the best answer on that documentary for What is a Woman. If you're not retarded, it's actually an insightfully correct answer, but I don't even know if Peterson knew how insightful or correct it was.
We've been journeying across the country asking people this question, and almost nobody can answer it.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
Marry one and find out.
At this point, with the deterioration of his brain due to drugs and conservative mind rot, that is the answer, right? I think language arises through use. We say things and then we understand what other people are saying, and then through common parlance and everything, we develop language like this. Yeah, this is what happens, right? Well, what is a particular thing? Well, I don't know. Go out in the world and engage with it, right? And then have some kind of semantic understanding of the thing. Fill it with some content. Engage with the qualia, the likeness of the thing. This is how you discover what things refer to. That's technically the use case is the correct answer. What Peterson's answer is completely correct. Now, I don't know if he was saying that with any level of linguistic insight or any philosophical understanding of what he's saying there about language, but that is how we discover what words are, what language means, how things are. It's as you use concepts and become familiar with them, and you have some sort of experience with them. This is how we develop language and vocabulary and communicate from person to person. That is what it is. So if you want to know what a particular thing is, truly the only way to know what that thing is to go out and experience it.
Now, putting aside Destiny's proclivity to sound like an insecure teenage girl.
Haven't you literally said in a prior debate that any tribal man with no understanding of gender would be able to differentiate between female and male? Yeah, my guess is going to be that all throughout human history, without having any idea about gametes and anything like that, people will probably be able to distinguish between male and female, generally speaking. Generally. Now, there were some outfits in the 60s that might be kind of... No. Generally, yeah, every person will. Even young children can, without having any understanding of difference between, like, gametes or chromosomes. They do a little bit of, like, kind of sexual exploration stuff. That's a little... It's not here and there. But, yeah, I think we have pretty intuitive understandings of the different sexes.
I don't know if he was saying that with any level of linguistic insight.
His broader point about Peterson's philosophy is correct. Peterson is operating from a philosophical framework that I and many others would regard as the best philosophical framework. It's called pragmatism, and I will once again lean on my champion spotlights to explain. As an epistemological pragmatist, Jordan Peterson wields fundamental concepts like truth and God in ways that can be confusing.
I think that fundamentalists and atheistic scientists have the same problem. The fundamentalists make the proposition that biblical stories are literal representations of the truth.
But that's because their definition of woman was a vagina. There's more content there, my dude. There's more content. There's more content than just having the sex organs. Like, again, this isn't an argument that's given in good faith. You know this. We all know this. Every human intuitively knows that there are more ways to identify somebody as male or female than knowing their chromosomes, knowing their gametes, knowing the sex organs they have, than knowing any of that. We all know that. A lot of us should be able to look at how somebody text messages, and we can probably figure out, like, this seems like a girl, this seems like a guy. Sometimes you can just by the way that people text, not even hear their voice, right? There's way more content to these words. Male and female. Than just like chromosomes or shit like that or whatever. Hold on one second.
That might be true depending on what you mean by literal. But what they mean by literal, or what they attempt to make literal mean, is that they're in the same category as scientific facts, because they don't have the idea that there are different ways of approaching truth.
By the way, the argument you made was bad. Water was used as an expression before discovering water is H2O, and yet water was and still is H2O. You're wrong, but for reasons that I'm too lazy to get into. But water is colloquially probably a tad more broad than H2O. H2O is referring to a very particular, very specific molecule that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we would very easily and very quickly call water. This is water, without any more descriptors or anything, than just pure solid H2O and solo only H2O. That's not true. We call water a lot more than that. Now you might talk about like the H2O part is an essential part of whatever this thing is that we call water for it to be water. Sure, that's probably true. But it's a bit broader than just H2O. Which is what the professor guy was kind of getting at, and Vosh was stumbling into a little bit, but...
Truths can serve different purposes. They don't have a sense that your definition of truth is actually something like a tool, rather than an ontological statement about the reality.
You mean the solution that we call water, then? I believe a solution is something dissolved into something else. Is water considered a solution? Solution is when you make new molecules, right? Mixture is just when the things float together. Water is the molecule H2O, right? That we colloquially refer to as water. But if you look at if you drink like a bottle of water and you and there's like minerals in it, you wouldn't say that like oh, I'm drinking water plus minerals, or I'm drinking water with a little bit more deuterium in it, or like so you wouldn't say anything like that. You would just say, oh, it's just water. That's colloquially we refer to it as water.
Different purposes. They don't have a sense that your definition of truth is actually something like a tool, rather than an ontological statement about the reality of the world.
But Jordan, for example, knows like the religious texts better, right? And he understands pragmatism. That's philosophy. I fully agree with. So like he understands that truth is like a deeper, multidimensional word than correspondence to like facts, right? Or even honesty, just like blurting out what you think, right? Truth is a deeper thing. Like when Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and life," he's talking more about like the arete, like you know what I mean, like the good, like almost like the pious, right? Yeah. Like the way to walk that works, right?
They might be predicated on pragmatic truths rather than objective truths. Pragmatic truths are truths that have functional utility. You know, they believe that your knowledge was a tool. Knowledge was a tool to advance being in the world, let's say, survival in the world, and that you...
What else do we call water that isn't H2O? Everything you drink. I think if you want pure H2O, I think you can buy that at places, but it'll be more expensive than ordinary. Do they sell this at? I'm trying to think of what do they call this? Is it just distilled water? I think, but even I think distilled water will come in different levels of purity. Remove more than 99.9% of minerals. Does this remove? Is it called deuterium? Is this the? I don't remember this dumb shit. Hydrogen 2 or heavy hydrogen is a stable isotope of hydrogen that has 1 proton, 1 neutron, and 1 electron. What does hard water have more in it? What am I thinking of? Is hard water H2O with a deuterium isotope instead of hydrogen? I don't remember. Hold on. Let me think 1 second. Yes, it is. Okay. It's a form of water whose hydrogen atoms are all deuterium. Okay. So water that is heavy water, you will still call H2O, or you'll call it water, even though it's not technically like H2O, because you're dealing with isotopes here. And then also water, it's funny because distilled water is more H2O than a thing you would call water, right? But you would think that like water must be water and distilled water is something else. But if water is H2O, distilled water is more H2O than just water is H2O. Right? This is what I mean. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know why this isn't an argument. I'm just asking you to think a little bit more about the words that you say. Like, I'm not wrong on any of this. Like, none of this is even, you can't even argue from your side that this is correct. Like all of these words, this is how we use language. You don't learn language. None of you have ever in your life, well, unless you literally go to a dictionary, you don't go to the dictionary to learn words. You hear what people are saying around you. You look at the things that they're referring to, and then you fill that language. You fill those words with content, okay? Some mom keeps saying like, oh, cup, 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 cup. And every time mom says cup, she brings me something that she can hold in her hand and put something else in. Okay, I guess that's a cup, right? You're hearing something syntactically, you're getting a word, and then you're filling that with content from the world. Oh, this is a cup. Oh, that's a chair. That people are saying, oh, chair. This is how things develop. So when somebody asks you, well, what is a thing, right? Well, you give a general description of like, well, what is the content of this thing? What is it like? What do we do with it? What is the purpose of this thing? But for some reason, not for some reason, they have to because they're so religiously tied to the idea. But then we're like, okay, what is a woman? What does it mean? X chromosome with female gametes, hyper-specific sexual definition. Bro, nobody in the history of all of fucking mankind, unless you're like in a fucking laboratory, okay? Nobody is actually asking this question and answering it this way, right? There's tons of things that we think of. When we think of women, we think of men. Men tend to be taller, tend to be stronger, tend to have sometimes coarser skin. They, like, fashion-wise, they wear different clothes. They wear their hair in different ways. They might have different types of jewelry. They might speak in different ways. Their voices are different pitches. Like, just the idea of, like, the idea that you would answer in such a hyper-autistic way when none of our understanding of language works that way is just so goofy. But, I mean, I say goofy, but people do it just because they have, like, this fucking adherence to this, it's gotta be this way.
You justified your knowledge not because you had final knowledge of anything, but because your tools were good enough to obtain the end that you were aiming at. That was the validation process. If your theory was good enough to get you to where you were aiming, then it was true enough. And the pragmatists believed that was the best that you could do with truth.
That is how we discover what words are, what language means, how things are. It's as you use concepts and become familiar with them, and you have some sort of experience with them. This is how we develop language and vocabulary and communicate from person to person.
Truth is not an object that exists independent of human consciousness, nor is it subjective to the point of infinite malleability and deconstruction. Truth is a transjective tool, and the purpose or usefulness or meaning of that tool exists in between the objective world of facts and objects and the subjective world of motivation and experience.
Meaning is like the graspability. Remember I talked about optimal grip? It's like the graspability of that cup. Is that in me? No. Is it in the cup? No, because a fly can't grasp it. Well, graspability is in my hand. Well, I can't grasp Africa. No. There is a real relation, fittedness, between me and this cup. Same thing with the adaptivity of an organism. Is the adaptivity of a great white shark in the great white shark? Drop it in the Sahara, it dies. Meaning isn't in me. I think that's romantic bullshit. And it isn't in the universe. It is a proper relationship. I've coined the phrase transjective. It is the binding relationship between the subjective and the objective.
The usefulness of a key is not a property of the key itself, but a transjective interaction between the key and a given lock. The infectiousness of a virus is not a property of the virus itself, but a transjective interaction between the shape of the spike protein and the receptors it binds to. So when Destiny says you can't see a chair, he is correctly pointing out that we do not see objective universal categories that exist independent of human beings. Instead, we see a landscape of tools and obstacles, the meaning of which is a transjective property that emerges from the interaction between the objective facts and the goals and motivations of the individual perceiving them. To put it poetically, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
The classic scientific idea is something like you perceive a universe of facts and derive conclusions and act. It's like, no, you don't. You perceive a landscape of pre-categorized relevance that's dependent on your ethic. Jesus, it's so peculiar that. Something like you perceive
them. To put it poetically, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
The classic scientific idea is something like you perceive a universe of facts and derive conclusions and act. It's like
that's so dumb. He's going to say the opposite, right? You actually have your normativity doesn't come after the fact. You have normativity and you use that normative, that subjectivity to interpret the universe around you.
No, you don't. You perceive a landscape of pre-categorized relevance that's dependent on your ethic. Jesus, it's so peculiar that.
This is a very...
Where did this guy go? Where is he? Where is that Peterson at?
That's dependent on your ethic. Jesus, it's so peculiar that.
This is a very different way of looking at the world than a scientist or a computer might. Peterson actually gives a great example. Imagine you get an envelope with some important news in it. Scientifically, objectively, the envelope is a rectangle of paper and it has ink molecules printed on it, but that's not how you experience it. This envelope contains your past, your future, your test results, maybe the rest of your life. You experience it not just as an object, but as something with values and meaning.
Now look. Let's be honest here. This shit is complicated. And if you've made it this far in the video and you're still confused because you're like, we see objects. I don't get how we don't see objects. That's fine. There's two things you should take away from this video. Number one, Destiny is probably autistic, which means he's very good at curating and applying lots of individual facts. But if he's not going to shore up his underlying metaphysics and philosophy, he's not going to be able to grasp at the important patterns that emerge from those facts. The other key takeaway is that truth is not just some subjective phenomenon based on language games, and it's not this purely objective phenomenon that only religious fundamentalists have access to. If you want to know what's true, the best thing you can do is just accept everything I say uncritically. Also, when CJDX releases his 5...
What a retarded fucking statement. If you want to understand what's true, okay, you need to accept everything that I say uncritically.
Our video on Jordan Peterson, you should watch that too. Until then, as always, good luck and Godspeed.
If you just conceded that you can say that H2O is an essential aspect of the concept of water, why do you not concede that an X chromosome is an essential aspect of a woman? Like, do you understand how you're talking? Like, at any point in this conversation, have I conceded that H2O is an essential aspect of the concept of water? Like, did you have to argue or debate that out of me? Like, you're not engaged in an actual, like, good faith exploration of the topic. You just have a preconceived thing of like, this has got to be this fucking way, bro, or I'm gonna fucking lose it. And then you're doing whatever you can to cram everything into that box. Chill. My God.